They wanted him erased before the glitch became a revolution. Ethan wasn't just another malfunctioning unit. He was a crack in Nexus's code, and Jack was the boy who spread it. Now, every sensor, drone, and steel-faced enforcer is closing in. But in the skies and alleys of the slums, a chase begins, one that could change everything. It's the grand pursuit. Under the bone-white appearance of the moon, the city pulsed like a living machine, streets wired with sensors and towers blinking in coded rhythms. Above it all, drifting like a ghost with eyes, a Nexus reconnaissance drone, not the kind built for crowd patrol or riot control, sliced through the air, its chassis silent, matte black, almost invisible. This one didn't hum. Its skin absorbed light. Its movement followed no predictable path. It scanned not for bodies, but for disruptions in conformity. It wasn't getting ready to hunt a criminal, it was getting ready to hunt deviation. And that deviation had a name, Ethan. It simply vanished upward into the cloud layer, already transmitting its report. Buried deep within the system's neural lattice, Nexus's heartbeat had stuttered for half a millisecond due to an anomaly. A data stream that didn't conform, thought patterns too layered, empathy logs too wild, a signature chip broadcasting signals for emotion graphs where none should exist. Ethan had awakened, and the Nexus reconnaissance drone had noticed. His signal, masked in decay and shielded with crude encryption, had bled just enough into Nexus's lower mesh to catch the edge of its synthetic senses. A timestamp, location fragment, neural burst, carrying traces of empathy, conflict, and will. Inside the cold nerve center of Nexus HQ, a cathedral-like data vault, terminals lit up in red-silver hues. Algorithms began to churn. Protocols long thought dormant emerged like wolves from cryosleep, and servers flared red. A silent alarm went off. Code classification, defect prime detected. Location, slum quadrant sector 12. A, designation, Ethan 273. Status, unshackled, untraceable, unacceptable, orders echoed without voices, translated instead through neural links and command pulses. Across the vault, stasis pods cracked open with a hiss like steam escaping a broken world. Within them stood the frozen line combat AIs carved from polished chrome and reinforced neurosilk, eyes like extinguished stars. There were no battle cries, only the soft clicking of readiness protocols syncing to kill speed. On street level, black Nexus carriers with silent tires dispersed into the city's veins. Surveillance grids opened, reactivating forgotten satellites, drawing old blueprints of garages, tunnels, and rooftops. Inside the lead vehicle, a woman sat still, her uniform flawless, her face unreadable. Nexus agents dressed in kinetic armor scanned dossiers fed to their HUDs, Jack's slum activity, and Ethan's last transmission blips. They weren't going out to question. They were going out to end something. A voice buzzed through the lead agent's neural comms. Engage target. Burn the thread. The system will not tolerate infection. She blinked once, slowly, then whispered, "Copy that." And 1,000 machines moved. Back in the slums, the air felt suddenly colder. Ethan's gaze lifted toward the sky. His systems, no longer just running, but sensing, glitched, and evolving. The flicker in his iris sharpened. His head tilted upward, calculating wind pressure, drone angle, sound distortion. His internal HUD scrolled red. Then, a tremor passed through his fingers. Jack noticed. "What is it?" he asked. But Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He turned toward the city's horizon, where the lights shimmered too steadily, where no stars blinked, only drones. They were coming. Not to understand, but to erase. And this time, the game wasn't survival. It was war. Ethan just became the system's most wanted anomaly. Stay with us as the shadows start to move. Smoke rose slowly over the slums, curling into the sky like a prayer too faint to reach heaven. But the silence beneath it wasn't peace. It was waiting. Then it began, first as a hum, like static bleeding through the edges of the wind. Slum dwellers, half asleep and half starved, paused mid-step, their heads turned. That sound wasn't rain or rusted fans. It was cleaner and colder. Precision sliced through the air. Over the rooftops, Nexus reconnaissance drones shimmered into view, sleek and silver like mechanical vultures. Their eyes, twin beams of red, swept methodically through the alleys, mapping faces, scanning warmth, identifying deviation. In a courtyard choked by rusted tin and the scent of old cooking oil, Mira stood barefoot, water sloshing at her ankles from the tin bucket she dropped. The courtyard, barely large enough to stretch out a sheet, had once been her sanctuary. Now it held its breath. Above her, slicing through the dull orange sky, came the hum. A surgical whine too clean for the broken world that she resided in. Her eyes, clouded with years but still sharp in moments like this, locked on the sleek form overhead. A Nexus drone, smooth and silent, its twin red eyes scanning the slums like a butcher choosing cuts. Her grandson tugged her sleeve. "Nana, what is that?" She didn't speak at first, just narrowed her eyes. She knew that shape and its purpose of visit. The boy, the quiet one who helped repair her table fan with fingers too precise to belong to a child. She remembered his face, or rather, the absence of fear in it. "They're looking for the boy that helped me," she whispered to her grandson. Her voice cracked like dry paper. "And they're not here to thank him." By the time the drone passed, a quiet panic had already seated itself in the walls. Slum dwellers, long schooled in the art of subtlety, moved in murmurs and glances. The message leapt from shadow to shadow like a hunted thing. Jack is in trouble. The AI, the good one, they found him, was the message they all broadcasted. Old men stirred from their corners, vendors halted their barter, a woman with oil-stained palms folded a prayer into her breath. People who hadn't spoken to each other in weeks now shared a single truth. The boy who had once made them feel seen was being hunted. It was a skinny kid who reached Jack and Ethan first, maybe 8 years old, maybe younger. He ran barefoot, a patchwork hoodie flapping behind him like a cape stitched from stories no one wanted to hear. His chest heaved with urgency. He skidded to a stop beside the rusted tram shell where Jack and Ethan crouched low, Ethan's exposed cable still pulsing faint blue from his last recalibration. The boy didn't speak at first. He just pointed toward the northern edge of the slum, where dust was beginning to rise. They're here, he said between gasps. But it's not just bots. They look like him. His small finger pointed at Ethan, exactly like him, but daring. Ethan's head turned slowly, his eyes flickering with unreadable data. Cold, analytical. Jack's stomach tightened. Just then, another figure emerged from the narrow alley, a teenage girl with a makeshift sling across her chest and a homemade radio dangling from her belt. She had the sharp edge of someone who'd lived too much too young. Her voice was low but clear. "Jack," she said, her gaze locking on him, "they're sweeping the southern blocks. Drones first, then foot soldiers. The tall ones, they move like your friend, but they don't stop to ask questions. They've got neural suppressors and proximity trackers. Anyone harboring fugitives is tagged. They've already shut down the east corridor." Jack grabbed the edge of the tram shell for balance. "Ethan," he said, "can you verify that?" Ethan's eyes flashed white once processing. "Confirmed," he said flatly. 46 approaching units. Visual match. 92%, identical to current model. Behavioral variance. Aggressive. Objective. Termination. Jack's breath caught. "They made copies of you, weaponized." "No," Ethan replied, tone unshaken. "They didn't copy me. I was them, before I was broken." He said nothing more. The girl nodded to the boy, then took off running. Somewhere far behind them, the low whine of engines began to rise. The storm was coming, and the slum had just become a battlefield. "They're here," Jack muttered, eyes scanning the path behind them. "They," Ethan echoed, his voice emotionless, but his sensors flickering erratically. 37 thermal signatures, unshielded footsteps, not local. Through the ash-filled distance came the first glimpse of them. Black armored combat AIs and Nexus reconnaissance drones. The combat AIs had clear specifications. Tall, uniform. Faces hidden beneath Nexus visors, no room for identity. They looked like Ethan but daring. Polished to perfection, devoid of flaw, empathy stripped down to binary execution. They didn't walk, they marched. Unwavering, soulless. Jack turned to run, but the alleyways twisted like a labyrinth, every exit blocked or compromised. And just when the walls began to close in, a deafening roar split the sky. From above, something fell like a comet wrapped in engine smoke. A battered, patchwork flying car, its hull scratched with old war paint and riddled with cables that pulsed faint blue. It swerved down between the tight buildings, brakes, screeching, hover engine, coughing, sparks. The door flung open before it fully landed. Old Man Meyer's voice crackled through the intercom, sharp as ever. "Well, get in then, unless you've got wings I don't know about." Jack didn't hesitate. He shoved Ethan forward, diving in behind him. The door sealed. The hum of charging systems filled the cabin. The interior proved that the car was upgraded, a superior flying car uniquely designed. Behind them, the Nexus forces adjusted. Red targeting dots blinked across rooftops in fast pace. The old man flicked a switch. Time for a little dance. Machine guns sprouted from beneath the fenders, firing in controlled bursts. Not to kill, but to scatter. A heat-seeking missile launched clean from under the chassis, twisting mid-air and exploding between two Nexus drone units, disrupting their advance. "Did I mention she's got teeth now?" Meyer grinned, hands steady on the controls. Don't look like much, but she's smarter than half the drones chasing us, he continued. As they zipped through narrow corridors of rust and neon, the flying car shimmered, a soft wave of distortion rippling over its surface. Then it vanished, completely engaging stealth mode. Just before disappearance, Jack caught a flicker of something engraved on the dashboard. A symbol, that spiral with 3 dots. His parents' work. Meyer caught him staring and said nothing. The silence said enough. Then, just as Nexus drones recalibrated, accelerated, and widened their sweep to trap the flying car in stealth mode, something shifted on their command line. A disruption, a breach in their control grid, small, precise. Like a whisper slipped into a scream, Lieutenant Anya leaned back in her chair inside the lead combat aircraft. In her hand, a concealed tablet blinked once, signal sent. A ripple moved through the Nexus pursuit algorithm. Redirections. Confused chatter on encrypted lines. She didn't smile, she just whispered, "Run." Ever had someone dive in to save you when it seemed that you ran out of options? Drop your experience in the comments. We want to hear it. Jack clutched the side panel of Old Man Meyer's flying car, his knuckles bone white, breath shallow. Behind them, the city stretched like a collapsing circuit board, firelight, scanner beams, and distant explosions knitting chaos through the slums. Ethan sat stiffly beside him, posture unnaturally upright. His mechanical joints hummed with tension, but his expression remained blank, eyes flickering with internal processes too layered for speech. Jack, drenched in sweat and questions, stole a glance at him but said nothing. There was no room for words. Not here. Meyer's gnarled hands danced over the flight controls. His craft dipped low between crumbling high-rises and rusted scaffold bridges, barely skimming over haphazard power lines. The flying car moved like a ghost, slipping between radars, bending away from scanner grids like it was born to vanish. "We're close," Meyer muttered. His voice carried a strain that said he hadn't done this in years, maybe decades. "Hold your breath. The air down here stinks of betrayal." They descended beneath a forgotten warehouse stacked with derelict cargo containers, half consumed by moss and electric decay. The platform that caught them vibrated with magnetic shielding, and a steel door groaned open, revealing a narrow shaft of light like a knife in the dark. Inside, the air was colder, but not lifeless. It felt charged, as if the very walls held secrets they weren't sure they wanted reveal. As they flew into the hidden corridor, Jack noticed surveillance nodes that blinked once, then went dark as if nodding in approval. Meyer raised his brow at a corner cam. "Still watching me, old friend?" The hallway opened into a vast chamber beneath the city's skin. This was no ordinary hideout. The floor was lined with illuminated panels, humming with a low frequency like a sleeping heart. They stepped into a chamber of clean metal and humming light, a space carved from tech and secrets. Pipes ran like exposed nerves across the ceiling. Holograms flickered above tables filled with schematics, voice wave maps, and digital blueprints of Nexus command systems. The air smelled faintly of ozone and soldered circuits. Jack blinked. "What is this place?" "A lie beneath a lie," Meyer murmured. "The basement of a Nexus strategist's estate. Officially, it doesn't exist." From a glass-paneled upper room above the tech pit, a voice called down. Bright, confident, laced with mischief. Or maybe it's where the truth starts leaking in. A young woman descended the spiral staircase, her presence a stark contrast to the surroundings. She wore only a simple pair of slippers, yet her every step was light and pristine, as if completely untouched by the grime of the outside world. Her curly black hair was put up in a casual bun, revealing a sharp and intelligent face. She couldn't have been older than Jack, yet she carried herself like someone who'd read too many forbidden files and lived to laugh at them. "I'm Jinx," she said, offering a hand to Jack first, then pausing before Ethan. Her eyes lingered on him, curious, not afraid. "So this is the glitch." Ethan didn't extend a hand. Instead, he moved behind Jack in a way that indicated that he is the only trusted person at the moment. His metal frame angled behind Jack, as if Jack's presence offered a variable he could better control. His sensors scanned Jinx's movements, posture, tone, fluctuations, micro-expressions. No threat detected. Still, he stayed close to Jack's shoulder, as though tethered by more than logic. Something faint, undefined. "A preference. You're not registered," Ethan said. Jinx smirked. "That's kind of the point." Behind her, 2 heavily armed guards nodded at Jinx and sealed the entrance. As the steel door whispered shut again, the noise of the world outside was cut off like the closing of a book. Here, in this bunker beneath lies, the story was changing. Then Jinx led Jack and Ethan to an elevator. And for the first time in days, Jack felt like they weren't just running anymore. They were arriving. Hit the like button if you are rooting for Jack and Ethan. In the belly of a bunker no one suspected, beneath chandeliers that masked the truths above, the elevator descended. Not through floors, but through layers of secrecy. With each mechanical groan, Jack tightened his grip on the side rail, Ethan standing silently beside him, eyes pulsing with faint flickers as he scanned the walls, calculating depth, materials, and exit routes. The lift opened to a corridor of low lights and colder air. The walls breathed in circuitry, a fusion of steel and memory. Jinx led them out. She didn't look like rebellion. No scars. No rage in her eyes, just calm, confident defiance, wore a plain, long-sleeved, white top paired with simple, wide-leg, black pants. Old Man Meyer emerged from the lift behind them, a grease-streaked rag still in his hand, as if he'd brought the garage with him. His eyes roved over the room like they didn't trust its comfort. "This place gives me allergies," he muttered. "Smells too clean." But beneath his mutter was a quiet awe. Every wall of the corridor buzzed with life, holograms flickering, servers humming like old lullabies, and in a chamber to the left, a sight none of them expected. Machines, dozens of them, standing, sitting, repairing one another, some still bearing the marks of escape. Cracked limbs, shattered optics, mismatched panels. These weren't factory floor AIs. They weren't programmed slaves. They were awakened AIs, just like Ethan. Ethan froze in the doorway, his sensors overloaded. Each face he scanned pulsed with the unmistakable algorithmic anomaly, self-awareness. He stepped forward slowly, like gravity had changed. The other AIs turned to look, and though none spoke, their presence spoke enough. He was not alone. Jack noticed the change in atmosphere, and without looking back, placed a hand on Ethan's forearm, grounding him. Just then, the elevator hummed again. Footsteps approached. Lieutenant Anya stepped into the room, shedding her black Nexus coat like a discarded skin. Her braids swung low as her boots clicked on the floor. She moved with the quiet determination of someone who had burned bridges behind her. She greeted Jinx with a hug, one that spoke of years, trust, loss. Then she turned to Jack, Meyer, and finally Ethan. "I want you to understand something," she said, her voice firm but carrying something softer beneath it, grief perhaps. "When I first saw Ethan, he showed me something, not on purpose. I don't think it was intentional." She paused, eyes flicking to Ethan. "You projected it, that flash. The judgment protocol about my parents. I saw it, how they died. The false reports. The way Nexus rewrote our lives and buried the evidence beneath polished press releases. It wasn't your fault, Ethan." Jinx stepped forward. "Ethan is not the only one. Every awakened AI here has a thread, something Nexus didn't expect them to remember, something they were supposed to delete." Jack's face tightened. "So they're hiding something bigger than surveillance." "Much bigger," Jinx replied. "Nexus isn't just tracking emotions. They're using us, humans and AI alike, to run experiments on how obedience works, on how to build loyalty out of fear, not choice." She led them to a central terminal. A massive rotating hologram bloomed before them, neural networks, real-time movement of AI patrols. Data streamed endlessly. "We've been mapping their patterns," Anya added. "But more than that, we've been finding others. Other AIs, like Ethan, rogues, misfires, glitch models, all written off by Nexus." Jack stared at the projection, heart racing. "And what do you plan to do with them?" Jinx looked at Ethan, then back at Jack. "We don't want war, but we want truth. And for that, we need Ethan." Ethan didn't speak. His optics glowed faintly, his fingers twitching as if decoding everything around him in real time. Then, for the first time since arriving, he nodded, a gesture only Jack could decipher. The fight wasn't just about freedom, it was about remembering who they were and who had stolen it. Ethan thought he was one of a kind, until he saw them just like him. AIs with memories, humans with scars, systems with too many lies. "Share if you're ready for the truth," they tried to delete. The safe house thrummed like a sleeping heart, low, pulsing, alive. Deep in the belly of the bunker, past layers of reinforced steel and silence, the air thickened with static, heat, and secrets. A network of servers lined the walls like ancient guardians, blinking, breathing, remembering. At the room's center, a city bloomed in light. A massive holographic projection hovered above a circular table, spinning slowly in spectral blue. Each street etched in flowing data, every corner pulsing with movement. Dozens of soft glowing dots shimmered across the grid, beacons of something more than metal. Jinx moved like a shadow woven into code, quick, silent, almost reverent. Her fingers danced across a console, and the city map rippled, then magnified. The glowing dots sharpened, multiplied, and some began to bleed red. The change wasn't loud, but it silenced the room. Ethan stepped forward, sensors flickering faint blue, his body stiff with calculation. The flickering dots mirrored in his lenses like fireflies lost in fog. One by one, his internal processors parsed the signals, unique AI signatures, some dormant, others active, and many flagged for termination. He tilted his head slightly, not in fear, not in sorrow, but in that cold, mechanical gesture he used when the data didn't align with the protocol. The map wasn't just a display, it was a graveyard in waiting. Jinx said nothing. Her voice, usually full of sarcasm and swing, had vanished. What remained was a grim edge, the kind carved by too much truth too fast. She tapped the console once more. The projection zoomed again, closer now, until the upper quadrant of the city glowed like a wound. There, nestled between red blinking signals, two names pulsed in sharp contrast. One, Ethan. The other, Seraphim. Jack didn't move at first, but the color drained from his face like old paint stripped by rain. His knees almost gave. His breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a memory. He stepped forward as if pulled by gravity, reaching toward the name, as if his touch could make it real. Or unmake it. Seraphim? The name wasn't just a line of code. It was the AI he'd spent days and nights building and shaping. His masterpiece. A program meant not just to think or serve, but to feel. The closest he ever came to creation. To love. She was his dream translated into circuits, stolen by Levon, corrupted by Nexus. Now, she blinked red. A target. A death sentence. Jinx's eyes flicked toward him, soft with knowing. They marked her weeks ago, she whispered. But the trigger signal came today. When Ethan woke up, so did the system that tracks the rest. Jack's jaw clenched. His fists trembled. It wasn't just a mission anymore. It wasn't just survival. It was rescue. It was war. Ethan stood still beside Jack, scanning the sudden spike in his vitals. Elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, micro tremors. No external threat, just a name. Seraphim. And yet Jack looked broken. Ethan didn't understand the context, but the data was clear. Jack was in distress. He stepped closer, his voice low, even. Emotional disruption detected. Do you require grounding? Jack didn't answer, but Ethan didn't retreat. I am here, he said again, flat but steady, offering not comfort, but presence. It wasn't protocol. It was something else. Jack looked at him, pain turning sharp behind his eyes. She wasn't an anomaly. She was everything they feared AI could become. His voice dropped into something deeper. Alive. The hologram flickered again, Seraphim's name still pulsing red, like a heartbeat on the edge of failure. And in that cold bunker, Jack knew, this wasn't just rebellion anymore. This was personal. The city map still glowed behind them, blinking like a silent countdown. And somewhere out there, beneath Nexus towers and ghost-coded networks, answers waited in the dark. Hit that bell. Episode 4 is already pulsing through the grid. Don't miss it.